Okay, welcome back, everybody. We're just running slightly late, maybe, but that should be okay. Welcome to the second session, so session 2, and we'll start with a trip to Brazil. And so I'd like to introduce Paulo Sumida. Let's go.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're now wide awake and after an intravenous shot of espresso. So I'm going to talk a little bit of what we've been doing in the South Atlantic concerning mineral exploration. A few years ago, the Brazilian government, through its geological survey, put a claim at the International Seabed Authority to explore cobalt-rich crusts in the Rio Grande Rise. As you can see in this map, this is part of the Rio Grande Rise. The squares are the exploration, 150 exploration blocks. Most of them are in this larger area here of the Rio Grande Rise, next to a large graben, which goes from depths all the way from 1,000 meters to 5,000 meters down in the southeast. And a small number of blocks in a seamount in this area here. The Rio Grande Rise is a large, really large structure. It lies about 1,200 kilometers off the southeast coast of Brazil. Here you can see the most famous city, Rio de Janeiro, but the most important one, São Paulo. So, and here you see Rio Grande Rise. About the Brazilian Geological Survey, they separate the Rio Grande Rise in actually four regions. This one is they called Alpha region, the largest one, and where all the exploration blocks are. If you remember, the exploration blocks are here, running next to the graben. There's a small beta region, which is where you see the small seamount with a smaller number of exploration blocks. You have a delta region here and a gamma region here. Here the graben gets about 5,000 meters depth. The whole region is about 600,000 kilometers. So you can, some people say that the Rio Grande Rise may be like a huge seamount, probably the largest seamount in the world. It's really big and really diverse in terms of geology. Its origins date back at about 90 million years ago when the Atlantic was splitting. And there are some controversy concerning the origins of Rio Grande Rise, but apparently it appeared after a great eruption of basalt from the seafloor, together with the Volves Ridge on the southeast Atlantic. Well, after the Brazilian government has a big program in the area. It's called the Pro Area, and I was working on it together with some of colleagues from universities all over of Brazil. The problem is that we have like basically 3 initiatives in Rio Grande, 3 projects running there, despite the region has been studied long time ago by other scientists, including Russians, and also it was exploited for fisheries resources. One of such projects is a joint project with Japan, with Yamamoto-san Institution, JAMSTEC. So you can see here Shinkai. We made an agreement, science agreement with JAMSTEC, University of São Paulo, and the Geological Survey of Brazil, and we explored, we made some dives in Rio Grande Rise. So it was, now we published the data, and this project is over. There is a second project, well, a third actually, because you have the Brazilian Pro Area, the Itapiúna project, and an ongoing project which is called the Marine E-Tech Polymetallic Deposits. It's also a joint project with the British from the National Oceanography Center, Southampton, and the University of São Paulo alone. So in this project, we have shared resources from the Natural Environment Research Council and FAPESP, which is the funding agency for São Paulo State, which is down here. And in this project, we use our vessel. This is University of São Paulo vessel, 65-meter vessel. And we are going to use now, we have done one cruise, and we are going to have a second cruise with the British Discovery in September. And then another cruise with Alpha Cruises, also this vessel here, in the beginning of 2019. So I'm going to show some data that we found in Rio Grande Rise. I'm not going to show too much about the cobalt crust because I'm not a geologist, so I'm just showing the pictures of it. We made a full hydrographic survey in the Graben and around the sides of the Graben in the Alpha area. And this is funny because all the blocks are here. And because we had some political problems with the Brazilian government, they were calling us traitors of the nation because we included the British. And they were afraid that the British would make some claim in Rio Grande Rise, and they were worried. And that's why we are not working in the Pro Area project anymore. So we're like doing an independent assessment of Rio Grande Rise, and we avoided going to the exploration blocks, so we explored three areas next to the Graben. We have some very interesting geological features here. So we had this survey here. These are the water masses in the region. It's interesting. You have in the southeast coast of Brazil, you have a very peculiar water mass system. You have many water masses running different ways. So you have here the Brazilian current, Brazil current running southwards in the first 500 meters, carrying the tropical water and the Central Atlantic central water, South Atlantic central water. Then you have the Antarctic intermediate water and the upper circumpolar water running north. Down to 1,500 meters, and then from 1,500 meters to 3,000, you have the North Atlantic deep water running south again. And below that, you have the lower circumpolar water and the Atlantic water, or the Antarctic water running northwards again. So it's a very complex circulation. Yeah, this is the Graben here. As I said before, most of the cobalt crusts are concentrated in this, in the edge of this deep Graben here. So most of the crust is a very flat top here structure. And the other interesting thing, besides the complex circulation patterns in Rio Grande and water mass pattern in Rio Grande Rise, you have a very complex geology here. Because it's a huge area, it's different from other seamounts. So it's much more complex. And you have here also another vision of the Graben. It's about 30 kilometers wide. In this area is about 1,200 meters deep. And here is about 2,000 to 3,000 meters deep. So the crusts are all here in this brown area here. Not everything is crusts, but you have other geological features as sediments and pockmarks in some areas. There's some argument that we've been finding like what you call continental rocks here. So there are some. It's arguably it may have been part of the continent before, but this is arguable. And we actually were able to to collect crusts. These are crusts collected by us. Our ship is not too big, so we could not use big dredges. I know that the Brazilian survey phosphorites and the crusts here. I'm not sure if they have really high value. I talked to Jim Hine, and he said that they don't. So I'm not sure. So the Brazilians, they think they do, but I cannot tell you. So Rio Grande Rise is a very complex area. It is lots of geodiversity, which translates into habitat diversity. And this makes that the areas in Rio Grande Rise have different habitats, holding different communities. So most of the communities are concentrated near the edges of the walls, probably because of the upwell currents that bring nutrients and food to the organisms, but you have many different areas. With Shinkai, we only examined this very top here, like from 1,200 to 600 meters. And we found, only in this very small part, we found, many different gel habitats with different communities. So you have the graben bottom here, you have the graben wall in this area. You found like lots of animals here. You find the summit where you have the crust. You have, in the summit also, you have a carbonatic like plateau and sediments here. So in all these, you have different animals that are related to these. We found different fish and crustaceans. Some of them are important for like fisheries, like this lobster here, Projasus parkeri. There are some other fish, but there is, I forgot the number of fish we had. It's about, I don't remember. We found also lots of invertebrates. You see different kinds of invertebrates. These are actually data from dredgings. The other one are data from video analysis. And one thing that's interesting is that when you look at the data, here is the observation time for video analysis when you do the videos, and these are the number of morphotypes, so would translate into number of species. So this is a measure of diversity of the places, and you see that whenever you have big scarps, there is a really increase in the number of species. So the species tends to be concentrated in the scarps rather than on flat tops, which is probably a good news for exploration, because if you're not going to explore on the scarps, so you're going to explore the flat tops. So this would give the area, would give the area better, conservation potential. And as you can see here, there are 2 dives, and then you have these increases in species number in the area. These are some of the species that we found in Rio Grande area, and some of these species are actually new to science. This is a new species of snail, of marine snail. This is a crab that was only known from Santa Helena Island, never been found in the Rio Grande Rise. And many of the other species here are new to science. So there's a great potential and to find all kinds of different creatures there that are important. Just as final remarks, some of them are pretty obvious, but particularly in Rio Grande Rise, we have like an abundant fauna. They're important. Some of them are high biomass in there, in terms when you compare to the normal deep sea. And they contribute not only to Earth's biological diversity. Some people just say like, oh, they're only like a cucumber. It's only a cucumber, but all these small animals are really important to Earth's biota, because they make the planet habitable to us actually. So they're very important, even though they're small, but they're very abundant. And they're also very important to a series of ecosystem services like carbon trap, cycling, and all a series of others that are important to us and to the system as a whole. The other thing that we have to bear in mind is a very sensitive fauna. So these animals, normally they live a long time. They have long life cycles. There are some fish that they can take 50 years to have his first reproduction. So this has to take into account when you make some kind of impact in a place, because once you take that out, it may take centuries, even millennia to return. And these animals normally have very low fecundity, so they produce very small amount of offspring. So it's important that they have a different timing than the shallow water organisms. So it's important that we do very careful, at least in the Rio Grande, mainly in Rio Grande rice, because it's a very diverse habitat. It's very important to do very careful baselines, that should be undertaken, not only considering biological and environmental data, not only in space, but also in time, because the communities may change over time. Of course, create marine protected areas in a way that the video that John showed, which actually was made by one of my colleagues, Craig Smith from the University of Hawaii, in a way that they preserve most of the biodiversity and also preserve ecosystem function, not only biodiversity. And also to continuous monitor areas that are being exploited, in the case if exploitation ever comes to happen. It's a very important thing. I'm just going to leave you with a video just for you to have a glimpse of, oh man. Is it working? To have a glimpse of the area there. These are not corals, these are sponges. Very interesting sponge. They look like corals, but they are not. The starfish there. These are, see the areas where you have the scarps, they're more fully colonized by animals. I think one of these stones were granite. I'm not sure. This looks like a cod. I'm not sure which one is this. Well, probably commercially important. Big fish. This image is, the footage was made by Shinkai, by the way. Just want to show some robotic things, so it could relate it to the workshop. See that these are the crusts. See, it's like a pavement. So the E-Tech project, we are looking at actually our main objective is to know how the crusts are formed, if they have the intervention of bacteria, if bacteria help them to grow. So we are looking at all the composition and the microbiology of the area. And I am doing only the benthic assessment on the sites. Yeah, is it finished? Yeah. Oh, that's the last one, just to show us a small piece of crust. In an area close to that, we catch a skull, a whale skull fossil. It was fossilized by crust. It was really interesting. It's a new species of paleo whale, a whale that lived a million years ago. Okay, thank you. If you have any questions. Yep.
Do any age dating of the crust. So do you have any idea about the formation speed?
Oh yeah, we had a with the whale. It's like a millimeter per million years, more or less, because I think the fossil was about 5 million years old or 4.5 million years old and had a 5 millimeter thick crust. I think the Japanese did it with osmium. It's being published. Osmium isotope, right?
Thanks.
A friend of mine said that the crusts are old. I mean, no, I'm sorry. It's like they're not, how do I say it? I'm not a geologist, but they are kind of being eroding for a long time. I don't think they're active lately, but yeah, I'm not, probably not good to talk about this. There's too many geologists here. I'm scared.
Okay, if there's no more questions, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Paolo. And we'll, please. And we'll now move to Hiro Yamamoto, who is from Jamstec, Japan. And he'll talk about technical issues on deep sea environmental impact assessment and environmental management and measurement.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for, and also thank you for that given this kind of presentation opportunity. So I will talk about Japanese project and situation. So this is I would like to talk about these four topics. And at first, Japan conducts a project for deep sea mining, and briefly I explain the situation. So, actually, so two institutes, and a government agency. One was my institute, the Jamstec. Another one is a JOGMEC, and also the discipline is just a little bit different. And Jamstec is a scientific and research institute, but the JOGMEC is where it's the promotion of the commercial deep sea bed mining. That is their purpose. And as you know that Japan islands and surrounding the deep sea area, and that's and many of the seafloor are containing the mineral deposits. For example, Okinawa Trough area is SMS is a very common, and around here is the crust, and also this area is rare earth. So that's why the Japanese government is now quite keen to promote the commercial based seabed mining. They want to keep the technology and also knowledge about seabed mining. So now, sorry. So this is my project, and I'm one of the leading scientists in this project, and so name is Project for Development of a New Generation Research. It's a little bit long, and start from 2014, and this year is the last of the year, but the second stage is will be started soon, and conducted by the Japanese Cabinet Office. So, the three subject is ongoing. So here's number 3 is my project, and I'm a leading scientist of this subject. So and JOGMEC is I think it's several people is very well known about this new press release in the last year, and the job make and successfully and lift up some sulfide and massive sulfide ore from the 1,600 meters deep. And they try. This is a good trial, and then they got successfully and good data. And also, they examine about an environmental and monitoring system. So they deployed some of this kind of the observatory, and also they tested surface and areas and monitoring system. Later I will explain about this kind of. So always Jamstack and JogMake is collaborate with, and Jamstack is provides technology and technique and sometimes data. So okay, technical issue of the deep sea EIA. So in this project, Jamstack has a lot of research tools and techniques, but these are mainly used for that science, not for that commercial-based project. So we within this project, SIP project, and we modified that our technique and technology to for the commercial-based and commercial-based and seabed mining. So I will explain about this two kind of things: the sample and oriented and the method. So usually environmental impact assessment need good indicator to compare the pre and post impact, and also on a different site and something else. So I think the small creatures like this one is a very good, very suitable no, sorry. They are not a good indicator for that deep sea EIA. So reason is these small creatures is live in not everywhere in deep sea environment. Ocean seafloor to that hydrothermal vent area, and even the surface of the crust. So and also they have the quick they can respond so quickly to that environmental change. This is good feature with the indicator as the environmental impact assessment. So, but the problem is too small. So, an accounting is of the cell is takes a traditional method. It is using my skillful experiment. But almost 10 years ago, this kind of the flow cytometers is available, especially in medical science. But after that, this machine is very common in even in environmental science. So the price is lower than 10 years ago, and the company can buy this kind of machine. So it's using this flow cytometer. There is two types of the flow cytometer. One is this one. Another one is the imaging flow cytometer. So this type is suitable for that micrometer or less than the micrometers microbes. But the imaging flow cytometer is less than 1 millimeter sized and small creatures, such like the phytoplankton or male fauna, that's small animals. So so in this kind of the machine, so you can time saving for to get the primary data collection. So for example, under the microscope, you count the small creatures, takes several hours. But using this machine, 10 minutes is enough. And also, reducing the effect of human skill for data quality. It's very easy to control the data quality. So, but another problem is how to know that species composition of that small kind of the creatures. So we now using the metagenomic approach. You know that metagenomics? You don't know? Okay, sorry. You know that the DNA. So DNA DNA contains the whole information about organisms. So these small creatures also same as so, but if you pick up each cell, it's impossible. So we decide we can do that. Whole DNA can extract it from the community, and then after that, we reading the all DNA sequence. So previously, this is very expensive and very expensive test. One sample is $1,000 or something else, but now is $10 is enough. If we want to read your own DNA, whole DNA, you can pay that $10 or something, some other. But the problem is data analysis. So big data analysis needs a good tool of the not only for the hardware, even the software. In Jamstack, we developed some of the software. The name is Maple. And then so reduce the time to getting the result. In this summer, we installed this Maple system to Jamstack and supercomputer, and they're open for the public use. So this method reveals community structure, but could not determine their population size or biomass. So, a combination of flow cytometer techniques and the metagenomic approach, it can create another robust and observation method for the microbes and meiofaunus community. Next is imaging. Inside camera system provide us very good data to know that what kind of organisms is there. So for example, this one is traditional water sampling system and installs a video plankton recorder, and also you know that GoPro camera, very cheap, and you can buy that anywhere. It works very well, and these cameras images can provide us this one, and then once in that laptop computer on board, you can get this data and distribution pattern. So this is very important things, because previously we getting the plankton net, and then so counting that in laboratory, not on board. But now we can getting this kind of the data on board. So very convenient to think about this areas is what kind of the ecosystem is there. But GoPro and is very well, but resolution and is not enough. So we now we developed some of the new type of camera system. One is an institute holographic camera system. This is Jamstack and the University of Tokyo and the University of Aberdeen is a collaborated work. So this image is the holographic and looks like very fuzzy, but this images contains several layers and data. So holographic camera system can take, for example, so normal camera is only can focus on the one layer, but holographic cameras can take several layers focus. So accumulated in one image. So you can analysis each layer. Reconstruct the 3D image of this kind of organisms. One more thing is high resolution, really high resolution, 8K camera system, made in Japan. This is a high definition, and you can see that the number is huge. So 16 times, and the 8K cameras image is this one. So each HD cameras image is 16 cameras is take this size of the video images. So resolution is almost 1 pixel is 10 micrometers or something else. Now we install this kind of camera in institutes and institute the camera system. Another one is seafloor observation platform, very compact and low cost. So why we developed this kind of observatory? So this is very cheap, and the Japanese yen is 100 million Japanese yen for 8,000 meters and deep, and spec is 8,000 meters. These glass bubble, 3 glass bubble, and then installed the camera, sensor, and lighting unit. Then this one is an baited system. So this platform can deploy in everywhere, and then so battery is 6 months is why we need this kind of bait. John, he already shows that way. Okay, so if you find some of the fish which is quite common on your dinner table, it is meaning is very that signal is it's not for that seabed mining area. And after that, so this information is quite important, but very difficult to get in such kind of the data, because very difficult to chase fish and in a deep sea area, so using the ROV or human something else. And the post-mining and monitoring is another problem. But the company don't want to pay the extra money for the post-mining. After the mining, but ISA and some other regulation and request the post-mining. So, but they want to use this kind of very convenient and platform. Another one is we very easy to getting image data and using that very easy to getting image data and almost automatically. But the problem is the image data is memory size is very huge, and the storage is a problem, and also so many images. How to identify that this one is this, and for example, this one is crab and squid or something else. So now we think about deep learning of the imaging classification and identification system. But the problem is AI in itself, not AI. Problem is this one, training data set for the machine learning. Fortunately, the Jamstack has a lot of the video data from the ROV and Shinkai or something else. And then now we collected the suitable data for that training. And then making the another kind of the database. But a very hard job that takes another several years, I think. And it's okay. So the environmental management planning, so monitoring and modeling. And we have one of the seafloors that monitoring is using the very small size, the platform, but not only a seafloor. The surface area is a very important place to monitoring during the mining operation, because the mother ships have some risk to accidental spill out of the mining waters. So usually it's very difficult to detect the small spill out. So, but we developed some new kind of bioassay method, very sensitive. So, using this system, we can avoid the serious things. Before the serious harm is happened in the surface area, we can detect the risk of that using this onboard bioassay system. Now this one is created by the National Institute for Environmental Studies, and so this is my collaboration and institute in Japan. One more thing is simulation model. Why you need this kind of simulation model? So anyway, the lava dispersal process is a driving force for recovery in benthic community, especially the deep sea area is very important. This kind of potential. So its meaning and post mining. So you must estimate or predict the recovery process. How long takes time, or is there the potential to recovery? So one thing is that this is just a particle dispersion model, and it's between deep sea and a bent field. Model is we developed this year. This year, as we published this mapping, not mapping, resilience of chemosynthetic community in hydrothermal bent field. In this model, we estimate the time. How many years takes time to recovery after the zero base? Its meaning is completely destroys the habitat. Some part is takes 5 or 10 years, but another part is takes much longer. So, but important is not the calculation system is the system itself. So this is very very useful to estimate no, not estimate, to design the regional environmental management framework. This is an CCZ area. Now is a 9 APEI, and this is a protected area. But how to they decided this site? So they estimate allowable dispersal distance, and then making these areas okay. And then after that, they set some of the buffer area to avoid the mining effect. And then so they set that this 9 areas. And then so this kind of the protected area design need much of the data, not only for that distribution of the organisms, but also you need the allowable dispersion and the process. But to get really correct data is very difficult. So we use the simulation model. And the regional environmental management framework is already authorized in International Civil Authority. And this year, another idea is will be published this year. So this idea is coming from that discussion within workshop workshops conducted by the scientists and the consortium. So this is for the license area of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Now, so in the workshop, this kind of the setting or this kind of setting, this is discussed with which one is suitable for that to protect the biodiversity in Mid-Atlantic region hydrothermal vent area. But we could not decide which one is the best because lack of the data. But gradually improve this kind of idea, I hope. And the last one, international affairs. Now we think about the technical standard and the transfer to the private sector. Now we publish an academic report, but also a technical report, protocols book. Now another one is coming soon. We already, this six protocol book is upload to this site. This site is under the IOC, IODE, and a data depository site. So this is one of the route to distribute to technical transfers. Another one is we submit the ISO. These three is already submitted in ISO committees, and then now is now started the voting. Last one is the data sharing. Now this is a little bit difficult to so data sharing makes a framework for the comparative analysis between the pre and the post impact, and also a different site to the mining site. But an assessment by stakeholders or third-party agency, they need the data, but they want to analyze the data. So we need we should make some of the data sharing system. And also, these environmental data, especially in the deep sea area, is very important. And availability for other environment issues, for example, climate change and sustainability, and even sea debris, the microplastic and the contamination, something else. And fortunately, the data circulation networks that cover the deep sea community have been established. One of them is BISMAR, OBIS, and then BISMAR is a local one. So, and I think this data sharing is a very important process. But and also an ISA is recognized that data sharing will be important, but that takes 3 years, and they create the new database system for the environmental data, but not yet available in. So we should push them to produce open for that environmental data, especially the deep sea area. And this is the last one. So environmental impact assessment is not only for that seabed mining. Another UN agency is also propose many of the standard. So, for example, CBD is propose the EBSAs and the criteria, and FAO is the VME, and this. So, purpose is a little bit different, but they use very similar criteria. And probably an ISA is takes this kind of very similar criteria employed to that their mining code. So we should watch. We should watch this kind of movement in UN. And also mining code for that environmental conservation. It's technology and suitable technology and technique is without this technology and technique, regulation and rule making doesn't work so very well. I think that's all. Sorry, time is up.
Thank you, Hiro. Any questions?
Too much things.
Hiro, I think I might have asked this question before at a previous conference, but do you have a figure for what quantity of material was extracted in that pilot mining test? Do you know how many tons?
No, not yet.
I mean, even approximately?
I
mean, like a truck full, or more than that?
And not that we don't have any chance to visit the mining site, because we collect the data of the little bit different area. So one is tsunami. After the tsunami and before tsunami, we have the data. So we use this kind of data, and after and another kind is scientific drilling. So kind of proxy. Only way we have the proxy data. And the JOGMEC is also have an environmental impact assessment project. They use the test mining area, but we request to visit that site, but they refused it. That's it.
Where could I find that information out? Who would I need to contact to find that?
Yeah, I know that information, and they told me that this kind of the data is available. But so now they requested to produce a scientific report, because the JOGMEC is JOGMEC doesn't have an expert of the expert on the research on this environmental impact assessment. So that they asked the JAMSTEC to make some of the scientific report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you. Sorry, time it.
And now we'll move to the final presentation of the day from Patricia Conceição. And this is about the seabed mining in the Portuguese continental shelf. And are we there yet? Which I guess is what my children always used to say in the car.
That was
Yeah.
what I wanted to say.
Now I have a car with only 2 seats, the front seats. Nobody asks that question anymore.
So, good afternoon. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we know, or rather what we don't know still, about the mineral resources on the Portuguese continental shelf. Well, doesn't matter. So, what is the extended continental shelf, and where does it come from? The United Nations Convention on the Continental Convention on the Law of the Sea came into operation in 1982. But it was first announced in 1973, so for over 7 years, representatives for more than 160 countries were developing this convention. And the convention, UNCLOS, defines the rights and the responsibilities of nations with their use of the global ocean. It establishes guidelines for businesses, for environmental, and for management of natural resources. So in Article 76 of this huge convention that defines everything about the law of the sea, it's the definition of the continental shelf and how coastal states can extend their continental shelf. So it says the continental shelf of a coastal state comprises the seabed and subsoil of the submarine areas that extend beyond its territorial sea throughout the natural prolongation. And this gives rights to coastal states to extend, if possible, their continental shelf. But more important than this, it's Article 77 that speaks about the rights of the coastal state over the continental shelf. It says the coastal state exercises rights, sovereign rights, for the purpose of exploring and exploiting its natural resources. And it says more. It says those resources, those rights are exclusive. So in the sense that if the coastal state doesn't want to explore the continental shelf, no one can go there and exploit it for them without their express consent. So the rights of the coastal state do not depend on occupation, effective or notional, or any other express proclamation. So this is the map of the Portuguese continental shelf that is being discussed right now in the United Nations in the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf. This map was delivered in August last year, but the Portuguese submission was first delivered in 2009. And as Portugal did, a lot other coastal states did the same. So in red here, in red here, we have all the areas that coastal states have asked the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf to extend their continental shelves. So a lot of states were interested in gaining more territory on the seafloor, and this is because of the run that has been happening to the natural resources of the seafloor. And here you can see a small timeline of what happened in Portugal to do with the Portuguese submission. So Portugal ratified the convention in '97, and in 2004 it concluded its desktop study, which showed that there was a lot of work to be done and that we could extend our continental shelf, but we had no data whatsoever. So in 2005, the task group for the extension of the continental shelf was created, and in May 2009, we delivered our submission to the United Nations. So our deadline was 13 May 2009. We delivered it, and as we did, a lot of other coastal states did also. So we took our number. We were the 44th state to deliver our submission, and starting May 2009, we started expecting our turn to come out and to start discussing our proposal. In 2010, we made our formal presentation to the Commission on the Limits of the Continental Shelf, and then we waited a lot of time. So when we delivered our submission in 2009, everybody was expecting to start the discussion of the submission in about 2013, maximum 14. But then only in July last year was our subcommission, so part of the commission was established, the subcommission that is going and is now analyzing our proposal. So what we did just after our subcommission was established, in 1st of August 2017, we delivered an addendum where we put all the data we collected between 2009 and 2017. We continued to go to the sea, we continued to collect data, and we delivered all that new data in 2017. And then finally, last year, we had our first interaction with the subcommission, and since that we had two more. In August this year will be our third. So with the area we have and the area of our continental shelf, we think it might still be a couple or more years until our proposal is finished and we have any results. Just to say that this is the area that we submitted, but it's probably not the finishing area. It never was with any proposal in the UN. So this is the area that we asked, but now we are discussing point by point where up to where our continental shelf can go. Okay. So during the extension of the continental shelf project, Portugal made a significant financial and technical effort, which led to a considerable increase on the knowledge of the deep sea. In this context, Portugal bought the ROV Luso in 2008, which is a work-class ROV that can go up to 6,000 meters depth, which covers 100% of our Portuguese seabed and about 97% of the global seabed. Simultaneously, a Navy ship was also equipped to be able to operate with ROVs. It's not the best platform, it's not really good to operate with our ROV at least, but anyway, it's what we have, so it's what we take to sea when we go and operate. The equipment on the ROV has been changing a lot and improved along the years in accordance with the experience, the needs, and the problems that the ROV team has to face. So the team works with several research institutes in Portugal and companies to develop equipment to improve the capabilities of operating the Luso. We have 2 high-definition cameras, not 8K cameras, I'm afraid, which we can buy from Japan. But, well, that was an improvement. We started with 1 camera, and now we have 1 just for the scientists where we can put the camera for what we want to see, and then the other camera is only for piloting. But we have, well, a lot of probes, and we have the ability to collect rock samples, sediment samples, water samples, and also some biological samples by suction sampler that we had already seen in John's video and also in the last presentation. And finally, this is our team, the team needed to handle the ROV. It's a national team that only started training in 2008 when the ROV was acquired. It has its hardcore with Antonio, which he is the coordinator, and then Andrea, Bruno, and Miguel, who work in the task group. And then we count with Renato, that comes from IMAR in the Azores, to every time we go to sea, this is the team that goes. We had a few coming and going because, as you might imagine, ROV pilots are very well paid, and there's no institution in Portugal that can pay an ROV pilot what they should earn. So these 4 keep doing all the work with very little benefit, but they are good. So they started in 2008, but they have been operating completely independent for the last 5 to 6 years. During the last years, and during the project, Portugal made a fantastic improvement on the knowledge of the morphology of our sea, because most of the extension of the continental shelf is made based on morphology of the deep sea. And a big survey of hydrographic campaigns was done. One of the biggest a country did during its continental shelf project. But even though it has been done, there is a lot of knowledge still to know. Because if you see, these are the dives our ROV did, and mainly they were made on zones near the border, the limits of our continental shelf, where we needed a lot of data, and then a lot around the Azores, because we were dealing with a new system. So we had our share of ROV problems, ship problems, and rough seas problems also. So we always were going back to the Azores to try to protect. Sometimes the Atlantic is not very Pacific. And then, if you see, when we look at the area that we mapped with bathymetry and the dives that we done, there is still a world of knowledge to be obtained. From 2008 to 2016, we made 164 dives in about 700 hours operation. But considering these dives and estimating at the area filmed in each dive, we reached the area that is actually known and somewhat sampled on the Portuguese continental shelf, which is 0.00018% of the total area. So we really need to know a lot more than we know now. But it's not all bad, because since we know nothing still, there's a lot to be learned and a lot of surprises to have. So last month, Luso, our ROV, was part of the Oceano Azul expedition, a campaign from the Oceano Azul Foundation to explore some areas near the Azores which are not well known. So halfway between Faial and Flores Islands, just next to the mid-Atlantic ridge, Exactly 2 weeks ago, the ROV made a dive and a brand new hydrothermal vent field was discovered. So, for the first time, an expedition organized by a Portuguese institution, led by Portuguese scientists and using national ships and means, found a deep-sea hydrothermal field in Portuguese waters. It was named Luso, after our ROV, and it is the 8th field discovered in the Atlantic ridge near the Azores. It is on a seamount called Gigante. Oops, sorry. Let me see if I can. Okay. This is just a 1-minute video about this new hydrothermal field. So it stands at 570 meters depth. So it's also the shallowest hydrothermal vent field ever found in the planet. It is still in the twilight zone Steph talked about. 4 chimneys were identified with transparent fluid emissions and temperatures that are only slightly above the temperatures around. And there are a few bacterial communities that seem to be present, but there's no other big fauna usually associated with hot vents like the shrimps and the mussels and those kind of fauna. So it goes to show that we have a lot to discover, and we might discover a lot more in the Portuguese Sea if we have the time and the money to go and explore it. In recent years, there has been rising interest in 2 novel classes of ocean resources with potential societal and economic benefits, which are metals from the seafloor that we've been talking about, and also chemicals, particularly drugs, derived from the genetic diversity of marine life. But sustainable use of these resources could have significant benefits, but it involves the interaction with a natural environment which is very different from the one on land, and that is challenging to access. This is just a cross-section to show you where these types of resources usually appear, but it's been talked enough today, so they are here, but it's just polymetallic sulfides, polymetallic nodules, and iron manganese crusts. I'm not going to talk about them. I think you heard plenty today, and you'll hear more tomorrow. But these are the known occurrences and the potential areas in the Portuguese area for these types of deposits. So we know some polymetallic sulfides in our area. We have a lot of iron manganese crusts occurrences, and polymetallic nodules, we just have 2 occurrences, which are not in abyssal plains, by the way. So we still have a lot of prospective areas that are very potential for these types of resources, and here this abyssal plain where we never dived, so we don't know if there are any polymetallic nodules there, and we would like to. And finally, this is a McKelvey diagram, a classic diagram used to understand the difference between resources and reserves. What we have for now are inferred resources. We know nothing about tonnages, grades, spatial variation, and about on the resources we have found so far. We know we have iron manganese crusts, we know we have polymetallic sulfides, but we don't even know if we have any nodules. So those are prospective resources. Oh, sorry. Those are prospective resources. They haven't even been found yet. Okay? We must study and sample these resources a lot more to understand if any of it is exploitable. And we need proper exploration campaigns, which will probably leverage technological development, and the size of the deposits, not only in area, but for instance, in polymetallic sulfides, also in depth. So we know we have to drill the deposits to really have a knowledge if they are reserves, if they can ever be a reserve. And even then, the passage from a resource to a reserve depends on what are called the modifying factors. Things like, is the activity regulated? Do we have proper legislation for the exploitation of each type of resource? If the legislation doesn't exist or it's not appropriate, then we'll never have a reserve. Is there technology available? Can we mine it safely with the technology that we have? If there isn't technology, it will never be a reserve. Is the area a marine protected area? If it is, then it won't become a reserve. Are the environmental impacts acceptable, and is the balance profit and environmental impacts positive? If it ain't, then it will never be a reserve. And finally, but probably most importantly, does the coastal state want to mine the seafloor? At the end, it may all come to a political decision. If it is the coastal state political strategy not to mine the seafloor, then even though we might have the best resources, they will never become reserves. Exploration of minerals from the oceans is now starting, and it probably will develop a lot in the few next years. In Portugal, we don't know much yet, but we should be ready to understand the drivers, the opportunities and the challenges that come ahead of us, and the wider consequences of utilizing or not these resources. Thank you.
Okay, any questions?
You made a very long list of conditions that will allow a reserve to become a resource. What is the most important for you? What is the most important limiting factor in this particular case?
I think all of them have to be somewhat protected, because all of them contribute for you to have a reserve instead of a resource. If you have the legislation but you don't have the grades, or if the impact, the environmental impacts are way too big, then you don't have a reserve. So you have to have all those. But I think the most important is the will to do it, because you might have all the rest, but if there is no will to mine the seafloor politically from a government, in our case, because it's in our jurisdictional waters, then they will never become reserves. Of course, governments change and wills change, but that's one of the most important, I would say.
And is there a will now?
I wouldn't say so, because, for instance, Nautilus asked for a permit to explore some of the polymetallic sulfides near the Azores, the ones that are already known. At about 7 years, you told me today. I thought it was about 5 to 6 years. Well, 7 years. And they hadn't had an answer, either no or yes. They just were left on the blank. I don't know.
Can I ask another question? So if you had 100 billion euros in your pocket, yes, would you invest it into technology or into lobbying?
I would invest it now in exploring what we have. I think it's still important to know exactly what we have before we start spending money on lobbying or technology. So well, you need technology to explore, but well, technology to exploit.
So there's still a lot of exploration that needs to be done in this case.
Yes, that's the main.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no more questions. That brings today's session to an end. Thanks very much, everyone, for attending. And we'll see you tomorrow, starting from 8:30 with a 9 o'clock kickoff tomorrow. Okay. Have a nice evening.
Just to remind, please, to inform you, the ones that have registered in our workshop dinner, please don't forget, we will meet at the restaurant entrance at 7:30, 8 p.m. And we could try to organize some rides, but it would be difficult to take everyone. If you need assistance and directions, please, in the end, come to us, okay? Paula or Ana Pires. Also, please do not forget that tomorrow, the session 3 will start at 9 in the morning, 9 in the morning. We also will have very interesting presentations. Our chairman will be here at 8:30. Please don't be late to start the works, okay? See you tomorrow and see you very soon.